Technology alone is never the competitive advantage. It's the ability to operate AI at scale and consistently translate financial and strategic results that separates the market leaders from other organizations that remain stuck in experimentations.
Not long ago, technology leaders were primarily measured by uptime, efficiency, and execution. Today, they're expected to drive transformation, create business value, manage cyber risk, guide AI adoption, and increasingly serve as strategic advisors to the C-suite and the board. Welcome to ctrl+alt+disrupt, the podcast where we explore the ideas, technologies, and leadership strategies reshaping business and society. I'm your host, Stephanie Rosenfeld, and today we're talking about one of the most rapidly evolving roles in the enterprise, the CIO. Our guest today is Vince Fattore, the CIO at RoadSafe Traffic Systems. Vince has spent his entire career helping organizations navigate change, scale innovation, and align technology investments with business outcomes. Today we'll explore how CIOs are approaching AI beyond the hype, what successful transformation really looks like, how cybersecurity fits into broader business strategy, and why value creation has become the defining metric for technology leadership. Vince, welcome to ctrl+alt+disrupt.
Glad to be here, Stephanie. I appreciate it. This is going to be a fun time.
I'm excited. So let's start with this one. Every executive conversation today seems to start with the magic words AI, but organizations are at very different stages of maturity. So given that, when you look across the market, what separates organizations that are creating real business value with AI from those that are simply just playing around and experimenting?
So true. Great topic. And it really goes back to organizations that are creating real value with AI aren't necessarily using more advanced technology. They're just as competitive as everybody else. They're executing with greater discipline and business focus. They begin with the enterprise priorities such as revenue growth, EBITDA expansion, operational efficiency, customer experience, risk reduction. The list goes on and on, Then they're also identifying where AI can accelerate those outcomes of the ones I just mentioned, right? AI is treated more as a core business capability rather than an isolated IT initiative. With the executive sponsors come from the CEO, CFO, and COO, and business leaders, the CIO provides the governance, the data foundation, the cybersecurity, the scalable architect, all required for success, right? That they're counting on. And that's where this position is really, really focused more and more in the past year as far as growing its capabilities. Rather than pursuing dozens of disconnect pilots that are out there, leading the organization to concentrate on a small number of high-value use cases, they'll improve the business one step at a time that can be measured through clear financial operational KPIs. They invest in trusted data, integrated AI into everyday workflows. They hold leaders more accountable for adoption, and the value is realized at the end of the day. In my experience, the greatest differentiator is that successful organizations view AI as an enterprise transformation lever that enhances decision-making, increases productivity, and strengthens customer service outcomes, and drives measurable business value. And that's what my whole career has been based on too, right? It's been an impact and business value. Technology alone is never the competitive advantage. It's the ability to operate AI at scale and consistently translate financial and strategic results that separates the market leaders from other organizations that remain stuck in experimentations. And that's where the really holdup has come. You got to leap forward, right? You got to take that risk. Yeah, you got to put your foot out there, and say, hey, we're going to try this because we know it's going to have an outcome, right? And you plan it out that way, So rather than, lack of a better word, putzing around, right? Have the plan, have it acceptable plan, help initiate the plan with the other executives and managers, and then go for it and make it show the return that they're looking for. Because it's not cheap, right? Let's face it. Hey, everything costs money.
That's exactly right. And you said it, right? This is what executives care about, is that measurable ROI coming from AI. But they also care about the speed, right? So what are you seeing as the fastest way to get that return on investment from AI?
The fastest way I can see as far as return on investment is going to be knowing, first of all, have a great measurement tool out there. Rather than deploying AI for the sake of innovation, for ourselves, we establish AI governance framework, right? prioritization of the high impact business case that we needed, and align the initiative and the operational financial objectives to it, right? We applied AI, machine learning to demand forecasting, procurement, inventory planning, forecasting accuracy went up, right? Using AI, generating more than $5 million annual savings for better purchasing decisions and reduced our inventory. It's more used precisely in certain areas of the business that could really benefit from it. But again, it has to be planned out. And I see that's where it's really going to take off for these companies. They really have to fine tune it and not try to use it overwhelming for the company, but fine tune it for certain departments, fine tune it for certain projects that will show the ROI. Again, you got to have the measuring tool, right? Or else it's useless.
So what are they getting wrong? Like what's one misconception that executives still have about AI adoption and the panacea that people think it's going to create?
I think from talking to other executives, I think what's wrong is the adaptability is number one. The talent, the training, it's not done equally and fairly across the board. Far as where the company's headed with AI, how they're using AI, it's not clearly defined. There's policies and procedures that they don't have in place, or they're missing steps, which could lead to financial risk, human loss of life, let's say. It could have outcomes such as, time-wise wasted. So I think if companies have more perspective on the human aspect of it, to really focus on that, I think that's where it's going to come to in the next year or two. And it already started that AI can't do that, right? That really comes down to decision-making, has to be human-focused, has to be enhanced in the training of our current leaders and our current workforce that's out there. And that's what needs to be reassuring to them to say, this is not taking people's jobs, this is enhancing jobs. We need them to do the enhancement for us to make it work, or else it's pointless, right? This is what it's all about. It can't dig holes. It's not going to sing to you. You can probably program, right? But someone has to do that behind the scenes. There's a quality of measure that has to be done to get the ROI on it, and to look at to say, this is something that's practical. This is something we could work with. It is a tool in the toolbox like any other piece of software, but you got to use it correctly.
Yeah. And to that point, right, it's really becoming so clear that this AI does not live in a vacuum, right? It's become of this larger ecosystem and the bigger transformation. And I'm sure you'll say this, I'll say this, digital transformation has been a boardroom priority as long as I've been doing this and for many, many years, but it still seems to kind of get away from folks. So in your experience, what separates this successful transformation now with AI layered in from those programs that continue to struggle?
Organizations that succeed establish a clear vision to begin with, right? For a strategic objective, such as revenue growth, EBITDA expansion, operational efficiency, customer experience, risk reduction. That's where the focus is really come down to. The executive sponsorship I mentioned before, that's another big one. That has to happen. To create shared leadership and accountability, I can't express that enough. This is not, as I mentioned before, it's not an IT project, right? This is not something that has to be just left to one particular department. This is about making sure that you have the right data, right? And what data are you going to use? What are you going to work off of? Far as you're not going to go back and correct everything 20 years ago, right? What data are you going to use going forward to make it more, again, to provide the ROI on it, to help the customer service, to help EBITDA, to help financial analysis. You really have to look at that structured data to make sure it's trusted, because that's what AI is working off. It thinks that the data is correct, right? But again, you need to know that data, understand that data, to be able to get the right outcome. And that's another thing I tell people. You should know the outcome pretty much already, what it should be, right? You should be saying AI is going to be doing the work for you. No, you should already know that the outcome should be like this, not like that, something negative. And I think it ultimately, the new systems that are out there, as far as agentic AI and everything, they really are pretty much all the same. So like I said, there's no one up from one company to another. It's a matter of the way you use it And the way you measure it, I can't express that more. That's why I keep repeating this. But it's about promoting operational excellence, the organization's ability to adapt and continuously improve after the project. No different than any other projects like an ERP implementation or integration or a CRM. It keeps on going, building the momentum to make it better, because AI is going to grow, right? It's going to grow again, goes back to the training, goes back to the talent, it goes back to the overall business structure you have.
Yeah. And I think, with AI, right, things are happening quickly and change is happening so quickly, increasing pressure to innovate at a speed that we've never seen before. So how do we, as technology leaders, balance that pressure to innovate quickly while maintaining resilience, while maintaining cybersecurity risk, maintaining all of the other things that are equally important?
Yeah, no, that's a tough question, right? Because you can't, technologies don't have the luxury of choosing between innovation and resilience. They have to deliver both simultaneously, right? You can't have a breach, right? But obviously want to perform optimal here. The organizations that do this well build security in the governance and resilience into the innovation process from the onset, rather than treating it as a checkpoint at the end. That means adopting a secure by design approach, establishing clear AI and cyber security governance, continually assessing risk, and ensuring data quality, identity management, let's say, compliance, that are foundations for components of every initiative, no matter if it's AI or an ERP implementation, let's say, or CRM. At the same time, they need to prioritize innovation based on business value, as I mentioned before, focus on a high impact use cases that can be delivered quickly without compromise operation stability. In my experience, for the companies I have worked for in the past, resilience isn't what slows innovation. It really enables it. When executives know the right controls, monitoring, recovery capabilities are in place, they are far more willing to move quickly and scale to new technologies faster. As CIOs, our role is to create an environment where the business can innovate with confidence, knowing that cybersecurity, operation resilience, and regulatory compliance are embedded into every transformation initiative rather than competing with it. Because that's the meaning of success here, right? Is to have everything work simultaneously and not to go back and always to move forward, to enhance it. And I can't express that enough, so I've mentioned before. It's a cycle, right? It just keeps on repeating itself. It gets better and better and better. It's like a pitcher, right? A pitcher that started in Little League, right? He eventually goes to the major leagues, right? He just builds on that. He learns the curveball, the spitball, everything, how to hold the baseball. It just continually grow till he gets to professionals where he should end up. And again, he's still learning every day. Why? Because there's a different batter, there's different weather, there's different arenas he's going to play in. I mean, there's so many options out there for him that he has to take into effect to make a better pitch.
Well, and it's rolling with those shifts, right? Whether you're a Little League pitcher or a CIO, right? And
right. You're always on the mound, right? Everybody's got your eye on you. You're going to strike him out, or he's going to get a home run or a double or something, right? It's always the pitcher.
Okay, so transformation is ultimately about creating value, which brings us to another major shift in your role as a CIO, where CIOs are increasingly expected to influence business outcomes and not just technology. So let's shift a little bit to how has the rise of things such as private equity ownership and investor expectations changed technology priorities?
Over the years, it has changed dramatically, right? CIO is so much more forefront on the table itself, the boardroom table, more than ever. Why? Because we are trying to reduce our risk. We're trying to help the competitive advantage. We're trying to log cost savings, try to provide revenue growth. One of the most important conversations CIOs should be having with executive teams and boards is shifting discussion from technology investments to business value creation. Too often the board conversation focuses on budgets, cybersecurity threats, system uptime, or the next technology implementation. But one more strategic question should be, how is technology accelerating our growth strategy? Where can AI and data create competitive advantage? Which capabilities will differentiate us over the next 3 to 5 years? How do we measure technology contribution to EBITDA, let's say, if it's private equity, right? Or customer experience or operational efficiency or the enterprise value overall for our fellow coworkers in the way you have operations now. Boards should also be discussing technology risk in the boardroom terms, not just cybersecurity, which I think that's the easy one for them, if I've seen, but also digital resilience, data governance, and AI governance, and talent readiness. I don't think the boards can focus on that enough. The board needs to, look at organization's ability to execute transformation at a speed that's twice as it was 2 years ago. Why? Because things are moving such a fast pace with AI now. It's very difficult for those boards to keep up, to figure out what new investments can be handled at this pace. Most effective CIOs that I know don't simply report on IT performance. They shape the business strategy by translating technology investments into more measurable financial and operational outcomes. They ensure technology is viewed as a strategic growth driver rather than a cost center. And this is where it's changed dramatically, like I said, over the past 2 years. We are more in the spotlight, like a pitcher in a mountain, as I mentioned, more than ever, because the CEO also has changed dramatically in his perspective, right? He has more knowledge of technology now than they had in the past 15 years, let's say, that they have to take an effect now and be able to handle correctly so they can make better decisions based on that, rather than just relying on the chief financial officer or the chief operating officer, let's say, or the chief marketing officer, right? It really is, it's more focused on now the CIO more than ever.
So are there indicators that you can point to that say the technology is actually creating that enterprise value rather than just supporting operation?
I would say one of the larger ones would probably be acceptance across the board for the company-wise. When I look at United States companies and companies overseas, there's a huge variation here with AI, right? They are so stringent over there compared to what we have in the United States. And you look at who does better as far as revenue is concerned, you have to take that account of fact. And you have to see what the laws are coming to play here, because a lot of stuff we should adapt from them as far as our policy procedures in the EU, let's say. They'll probably protect us even more in the future, but at the same time, it can't resist what business outcomes should be, right? So that's something they really should focus on. And I wrote a couple pieces on this lately on my own LinkedIn profile too. It's very crucial that we look around us, not only internally, but around us as far as how other companies are using AI and around the world and the policy procedures they come up against that can enhance, protective security measures, right? And also reduce costs, but at the same time, get into new markets with it. So those indicators there, I would watch out for. It's no different than looking at the economy now. How prices, how gas went up, and how food costs gone up, and good Lord, 0% financing for all the cars, right? Based on what it's going in the economy. You got to take that factors.
It's all connected.
Yes.
All right. So before we wrap up, let's do a little bit of rapid fire. Get your quick perspective on a few things. What is the most important leadership trait for a CIO over the next 3 years?
Where do I start? I know there's so many. I would say the most important leadership trait for CIOs over the next 3 years will be the ability to orchestrate change across the enterprise. Technology is no longer the primary challenge. Leading people is. Aligning stakeholders, translate innovation into measurable business outcomes are. As AI, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and evolving of business models continue to reshape industries, CIOs must bridge the gap between technology and business strategy, bringing together executives across from finance, operations, sales, human resources to share the vision. Again, it's not an IT project, right? They need to make informed decisions quickly, communicate clearly, build trust, create culture that embraces continuous learning and innovation-wise, maintain resilience and discipline at the same time. My view as a CIO who will have the greatest impact will not necessarily be the ones with the deepest technical expertise, but they'll be leaders who can align people, right? They're social. They're process-oriented. They're technology ready to accelerate the growth, right? They want to improve operational performance. They want to constantly deliver. They want, show measurable results with the value that they're creating. It goes back to those two things I think of. Impact and value creation is what they should be focused on. If I had to choose one, let's say, From what I see from companies I've been at and companies that are still out there that have some rocky roads in leadership, I would say enterprise AI literacy is that they should focus on, and execution of that too. On top of it, I think that's a key point. Now, I would really focus on out of everything else, because it shows that you have an understanding of the technology, you identify high value business opportunities, you establish the governance around it, you're prepared to trust the data, you redesign the process for it, you manage the change, you measure the outcome, and you show it to the board and everybody else. I think over the next several years, every technology leader will be expected to help the business harness AI responsibility while balancing cybersecurity, compliance, operational resilience. The leaders alone who create the greatest value won't necessarily build the best AI models. They'll be the ones integrating AI into everyday business operations and accelerating decision-making, improving the workforce productivity, and translating innovation to measurable results such as revenue growth, as mentioned before, EBITDA expansion, customer satisfaction, the competitive advantage. In my view, AI execution will become the fundamental to the modern CIO, just as the cloud was a few years back, right, for as a strategy is concerned. I think it'll be, light years ahead from what we've seen in the past for CIOs, let's say 20 years ago.
All right, last one, Vince. What's one trend that people aren't paying enough attention to?
I believe the one trend people are not paying attention to is going to be the convergence to AI, right? The enterprise data and how important it is, how operational workflows happen and what they are and who's responsible for them. Much of the conversation is focused on the latest AI models, but the real competitive advantage really comes from the organizations that seamlessly embed AI into the work that gets done. As AI evolves from a tool employees use to an intelligent capability that productivity recommends, automates and orchestrates business processes, companies will trust data that's finely tuned. They have strong governance. It's well designed with their operating model that will put them further ahead. The shift will come from redefined productivity, decision making, customer experience. We've seen that already in everything from call centers to orders being taken and how fast they turn around and follow-ups with the orders. Orchestrating technology enterprise transformation, I think, is the key here that we need to focus on. In the next few years, the organizations that create the greatest value won't be those with the most AI pilots. They'll be the ones that successfully integrate AI into the core business process and build operating model that continually learns, adapts, and scales. That's what the key is.
Well, Vince, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. So one of the things that really stood out from our conversation is that the CIO role it's evolved far beyond technology management. Today's technology leaders are being asked to connect innovation with business outcomes, balance opportunity with risk, and help organizations navigate this constant disruption. Whether it's AI, cybersecurity, transformation initiatives, or value creation, success increasingly comes down to leadership, alignment, and the ability to turn technology into meaningful business impact. So thank you again, Vince, for sharing your insights and your experience with us. And thanks for everyone listening to ctrl+alt+disrupt. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, follow, and share it with your colleagues. We'll be back with more conversations featuring leaders, thinkers, disruptors, shaping our future of business and technology. Until next time.